My name is Kevin Ford, and I'm a professional blade sheep shearer. Blades is a term for hand shears that actually originated in New Zealand. When I went to New Zealand in '91, I picked up the term blade shears, and I brought it back here, and now I think it's fairly familiar for people to realize that blade shearing is hand shearing. A blade sheep shearer is one who uses no electricity, no power. The alternative is what we refer to as a machine shearer. And there's various ways that machine shearers work, traditionally off of a clutch, but now most machine shearers that do a lot of machine shearing have their own overhead power source and a drop shaft. And I don't have any of that. I just have one pair of blades. Well, we're at Rising Meadow Farm in Liberty, North Carolina, and I've been shearing for these folks. This is my 28th year.
Oh, we moved down here 30 years ago. We bought the farm as my husband and I, my parents, and so we moved down and redid the houses and built the barns.
And the farm is a lovely farm, and they're lovely people. And it's a lovely home. They host me, and I'll be staying here 5 nights altogether. They started off small, they got big, and now they're getting smaller again. But there was years where we had well over 100 sheep to shear. Today we sheared, we finished shearing 23 ewes, I guess. 23 bred ewes. There was 2 ewes that had already lambed, and 7 yearling ewes, which were not bred, and 6 rams. So there's about 40 sheep here now. There was no blade shearing at all that I was exposed to until I went to Ireland. My grandmother was born on the farm that I returned to. And her brother was there in '68 when I first went back. And then I returned in '75 to stay a while and got my first lessons in blade shearing then. I was interested in learning small farm practices. I was hoping maybe someday to have a small farm and do it organically, and livestock would be a necessary part of it. And sheep seemed to be the right animal to have, the right kind of livestock, and so I better learn something about sheep, and I thought that I would like to learn how to shear. And so I went over there with the intention of of getting a lesson in sheep shearing. And there, my cousins, first cousin to my father's, had a flock of sheep, and as is a tradition over there, the farmers blade shear or shear their own sheep with blades, and so that was my experience, my first experience, and the only experience I really had with seeing any hand shearing done. There was none that I could find in America. So I just learned what I could in Ireland, and then picked up a few things from machine shearers, and then finally in 1991, I guess early 91, there was a New Zealand shearer and teacher, a member of the staff, teaching staff of the New Zealand Wool Board, and he came over to give weekend workshops and all across the country. And he wasn't himself a blade shearer, but he was familiar with blade shearers. He had a neighbor that was the chief blade instructor for the New Zealand Wool Board, and he encouraged me to come to New Zealand. And so I did. And then I came back, and I was largely self-taught for 15 years before, and improved in those years until I was at a point where I was shearing quite well for someone who had, minimum instruction, but I was at a point where I would benefit from the course that I took in New Zealand, a week-long course with 4 instructors from the New Zealand Wool Board that were all very, very professional and very good instructors.
Kevin, I think he weighs twice what you do.
Yep.
He's a big guy.
This is the Plan B position in it?
Yeah. And the wire.
You need to pull this one out every once in a while.
Looks like he's enjoying it now.
The blades enter the wool best at the right height, at a height where the skin is taut enough to allow the blades to enter the wool. If you enter the wool higher, the wool tends to fall over, and of course, if you're too close to the skin, you're going to bump into the skin. So there's a certain right level that the blades themselves seem to find going in, and you just need to know all the risky places where you need to rotate the blades a bit, or finesse them somehow so as to avoid nicking the skin, and know the high points or whatever. Yeah, there's a lot that comes from just practice. And the muscles learn and your eye learns, and it's like I think sometimes about a great professional basketball player, and why can't he just tell you how he does it and you could do it too, Well, there's certainly a pattern, what we call a pattern, and that's that pattern is not very old. It's been, both the machines and the blade shearing patterns have developed largely over the last 140 years. The modern pattern for sheep shearing has developed, and it wasn't standardized. The blade shearing wasn't standardized until in the early 1970s by the New Zealand Wool Board, when they hired the top shearers to make a standard pattern that could be the one that would be taught in courses. So 100 years ago, they would have sheared a little differently. For example, they would have done the belly last and we do the belly first. So it was a long process to develop the most efficient pattern for shearing. Much of the shearing now that's done in Ireland, not all of it, but much of it now is machine shearing, and the patent for blade shearing in such countries as Ireland and Scotland and other sheep shearing countries has changed since they've been sending shearers to the international competitions, and there they recognize that there's a better pattern for shearing, and they go home and adapt to it. And so the old patterns are probably going by the wayside. There's still shearers in Israel, Palestine, for example, that probably still shear in an old-fashioned ways. But more and more shearers all over the world are shearing according to, I guess, what's often referred to as the Australian pattern.
Shovel. Good shovel.
And now what?
Use your right foot and knee and shove her out.
I am.
Okay.
I have her. Thank
Okay, now push her down.
Yeah, there's a great deal of camaraderie between shearers. Everybody recognizes a fellow shearer, and any shearer that can help another shearer, they're always willing to do so. I have right now three apprentices that will come and share with me for the opportunity to maybe get some more shearing in, more practice, and maybe some instruction. It's very keen. It's very athletic, and it's very challenging. So you're always thinking that you might get a little better. So it's sort of never. You're never at a point where you don't think you might improve. You're always, ready for a tip from somebody who might do it better. The competitions are an incentive for that. You watch other shearers, and you're always thinking maybe I could do it a little differently. It's like any athletic profession, I think. You're never satisfied with how you do it. It's never routine. What it really does is make you very keen about doing your best all the time, because you don't shear one way in competition and another way when you go to the farms. You need to be working on your best form all the time. Once you're in that level of expertise, it's largely in the mind. I once sheared for a professional Major League Baseball pitcher. And I asked him how much of it is in the mind, and he said all of it. It's very much a mental game at that point. And the more you compete, the better you are at that. And I don't have the opportunity to compete very often. For a long time, I never competed at all, except abroad once a year in Golden Shears international competitions. Well, my first international competition was in '98, and my second was in Scotland in 2003, and I didn't have any competitions in the 5 years in between. It's great fun, and you come home hoping to do better next time. My tools are one pair of blades. The shears that we use are from Bergen and Ball in Sheffield, England, and I buy them directly from them. And out of the box, they're not very useful. to a professional blade shearer. And so it takes about 3-4 hours, 4 good hours to prepare one of these blades to be ready for shearing. I have a left-handed pair of blades. Back 30 years ago, catching a sheep, I sprained my right thumb. And so I learned pretty well how to shear left-handed. I actually sheared left-handed for 2 years before my right hand was strong enough to shear again. And I have a smaller pair of blades, a different model that I use for small sheep, Shetland sheep particularly, and Angora goats, and Icelandic sheep. And I have another pair of blades that I use occasionally for shearing alpacas and llamas. So I have 4 pairs of shears that I'm carrying now, 2 whetstones, a pair of hoof shears, and a hammer, and a stick in order to hammer up, that has a notch in it that I hammer up in order to have some place to hold my shears while I'm wetting the shears with my whetstone. You sharpen, you wear down the edge past the tempered edge, and they shorten as you wear them out. So I go through maybe 3 pairs a year of the number 1 blades. The primary whetstone is a medium Arkansas, or a soft Arkansas stone. It's a natural stone. Just about 10 seconds you can bring up a new edge. Again, that goes back to New Zealand. When I went to New Zealand, I asked them what they used to shear, and they said Arkansas stone, and that's how they pronounce Arkansas. And I said, well, where do you get them? And they said, America. And I had just come from America, but so I had to go back home and find myself in Arkansas. And of course, they come out of the ground, and I think the mines are largely spent. So the best Arkansas stones now are antiques in antique shops or old barns where you come across Arkansas. Some people now are using diamond stones. We have a bucket. We usually hang it so it doesn't tip over, and it holds the shears. And if we orientate the sheep just right, we can get ready and put it in the first position, and then just reach to our right and grab the shears that are hanging in the bucket. So besides the convenience of having something to put the shears in, the warm water acts as a lubricant and keeps the shears clean and actually a little sharper longer, as any lubricant would. Primarily, though, it's to keep them clean, because the grease, depending on the time of the year and how greasy the sheep are, and that'll change with different breeds and so forth. The grease will, the natural oil or grease in the wool will build up on the shears and make them sticky, and make them harder to drive into the wool. And so we keep them clean so that they'll slip into the wool more easily. We wear special footwear. They're sheep shearing moccasins that are made in New Zealand, and they basically keep us closer to the sheep because they have basically very little sole. So we can place our feet closer to the sheep, sometimes under the sheep, and they have just about enough traction so that we can hold our position, but also shift very easily. Sheep are a lovely animal. They benefit us remarkably. We get leather, we get wool, we get meat. There's a couple of flocks, one which I shear, that are dairy flocks. They produce, one of them does produce cheese. The sheep require humans to shear them as part of good husbandry, because they no longer can shed their wool. And we've developed them to grow a lot more wool than they would ever have grown for themselves, for their own survival. And so they require us, and it's our obligation now, since we've developed them, to hold on to their wool until we shear it. Now we must shear it, and it's for their own benefit as well as ours. And we really should respect the animal for all the gifts that we get from them. It's something that not too many people think much about when they, even those who appreciate a good wool garment, are too distant from the animal to realize what it goes through in its own life to provide us with this remarkable fiber.